The wind off the Adriatic was sharp that November evening in Trieste, carrying salt and the faint diesel tang from the port below. I stood on the balcony of our apartment in the old Austro-Hungarian quarter, watching the lights flicker on the Molo Audace pier, and told Matteo that we should end it. My voice barely rose above the tram rattling along Via Roma, but the words landed like stones in still water. He looked at me for a long moment, those dark, almost black eyes that had once made me forget my own name, and then nodded once, slowly, as if confirming an appointment he had long expected. Matteo Ricci came from one of the oldest families in Friuli, landowners whose vineyards climbed the misty hills above Gorizia like green staircases to heaven. His mother, Donatella, still wore black most days, mourning a husband who had died 20 years earlier in a car crash everyone whispered had been suicide. His elder brother, Lorenzo, managed the estate with the cold precision of a banker, while Matteo, the younger, the dreamer, had chosen architecture, designing sleek glass and steel restorations that irritated the traditionalists in his family. I, Sofia Conti, was the daughter of a Neapolitan fisherman turned dockworker, raised in the chaotic sprawl of Naples before a scholarship brought me north to study art history. To Donatella, I was an intrusion, a southern girl with too much laughter and not enough pedigree. To Lorenzo, I was the reason Matteo refused to return home and take his proper place. We had met 6 years earlier in Venice during Carnevale, both of us masked and anonymous. The affair began as something fierce and secret, a rebellion against his family's expectations and my own loneliness. When we moved to Trieste, it felt like a compromise, close enough to his roots for weekend visits, far enough for us to breathe. But breathing became harder each year. Matteo's late nights at the studio turned into mornings when he didn't come home at all. I found lipstick on a collar, deep burgundy, not my shade, and messages from a woman named Julia, an intern whose father owned half the construction firms in the region. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. He simply said, "It's complicated," the way Northern Italians do when they mean it's none of your concern. The betrayal wasn't the sex, it was the calculation. Julia was the daughter his mother had always wanted for him. Blonde, Friulian, connected. Donatella had begun inviting her to family dinners before Matteo and I had even argued about it. Lorenzo toasted new partnerships with a smile that cut glass. I became the obstacle, the southern mistake. My own family was too far away to notice. My mother sent occasional parcels of homemade taralli and asked when we would marry. I never told her the truth, so on that balcony, with the Bora wind whipping my hair across my face, I said the words I had rehearsed for weeks. We should end things, Matteo, cleanly, no more, pretending. I expected tears, shouting, the dramatic southern scene I knew from my childhood. Instead, he looked relieved. He kissed my forehead, chaste, almost paternal, and said, "If that's what you want." Then he walked back inside, packed a single duffel bag, and left. The door closed with the soft finality of a coffin lid. I stood there until the tram bells stopped ringing and the city fell into its winter silence. At first, I thought he would return. Men like Matteo always did, circling back with apologies and promises. But days became weeks. His studio forwarded his mail to the family estate. His phone went straight to voicemail. Donatella sent a curt message through Lorenzo. He is focusing on family matters. Julia's Instagram filled with photos from the vineyard. Harvest season, golden light, her hand on Matteo's arm as they held glasses of Ribolla Gialla. The caption, "New Beginnings." The rage came slowly, like the fog that rolls in from the Gulf of Trieste in spring. It wasn't just the cheating, it was the erasure. As if our 6 years had been a temporary madness he could simply step out of, leaving me holding the wreckage. I stopped sleeping. I walked the rainy streets of the Città Vecchia at dawn, past shuttered cafes and the Serbian Orthodox Church, whose bells tolled like accusations. My work, restoring frescoes in forgotten palazzi, became mechanical. Friends in Naples begged me to come home. I couldn't, not yet. The motive took shape during a solitary Christmas in the empty apartment. Snow fell rarely in Trieste, but that year it came thick and sudden, blanketing the Piazza Unità d'Italia in white hush. I drank too much grappa and read old letters Matteo had written during our first year, passionate, unguarded declarations that now read like fiction. In one, he had promised to stand against his family for me. The lie burned. Generational trauma surfaced like oil on water. My father's abandonment when I was 9, sailing south and never returning. My mother's quiet bitterness disguised as devotion to the Virgin Mary. I had sworn I would never be the woman left behind. Yet here I was. Revenge began as research. I used my access to historical archives, skills honed restoring documents, to trace the Ricci family holdings. The vineyards were leveraged heavily. Lorenzo's expansion into luxury agriturismo had overextended them. Matteo's designs for a new winery complex were the linchpin. Bank loans hinged on his reputation. Quietly, over months, I cultivated contacts. A journalist in Udine who owed me for authenticating a disputed Caravaggio sketch. A rival architect in Venice, hungry for prestige. The daughter of a bankrupt contractor whose father had been ruined by Lorenzo's ruthless negotiations. Spring arrived with wisteria blooming purple over the stone walls of Miramar Castle. I moved methodically. Anonymous tips to the journalist about financial irregularities in the estate's books. Forged. Emails, subtle, professional, suggesting Matteo had plagiarized elements of his prize-winning design from an obscure Slovenian modernist. A carefully placed rumor that Giulia's father was pulling funding due to personal indiscretions. Each action small, deniable, cumulative. By summer, the heat shimmered off the karst plateau, and the Ricci family began to fracture publicly. Lorenzo's temper flared at wine fairs. Donatella stopped attending Mass at the cathedral, whispers of her drinking circulating through Gorizia's salons. Matteo's engagement to Giulia, announced with much fanfare in May, collapsed when her father discovered the funding issues. Photos showed Matteo thinner, haunted, standing alone among the vines. The psychological tension gnawed at me, too. Nights on the balcony, watching tankers glide into port under floodlights, I questioned everything. Was I becoming my mother's bitterness incarnate? Had Matteo truly loved me, or had I been a convenient escape from his gilded cage? Moral dilemmas surfaced like ghosts. The journalist's growing obsession with the story threatened real lives. The contractor's daughter confessed suicidal thoughts after her father's ruin resurfaced old wounds. Autumn returned, the Bora wind stripping leaves from the plane trees along Viale 20 Settembre. I received an anonymous envelope, Matteo's handwriting. Inside, a single key and an address in Cividale del Friuli, a medieval town nestled in the hills. No note. I drove there on a rainy Saturday, the wipers beating time against the windshield. The address was a small restored house overlooking the Natisone River, its waters green and swift. He opened the door wearing an old sweater, unshaven, eyes ringed with exhaustion. The interior smelled of wood smoke and coffee. Books on architecture stacked everywhere. No photographs of Julia. None of us, either. "I knew it was you," he said quietly, not angry, resigned. I stepped inside, rain dripping from my coat. We sat across from each other at a scarred oak table as thunder rolled over the Julian Alps. He didn't ask why. He simply listened as I laid out every careful cut I had made into his life. The rumors, the leaks, the slow unraveling of everything he had walked away to protect. When I finished, silence stretched between us like the river fog outside. "You wanted me to feel what abandonment costs," he said finally. "I understand. I expected triumph. Instead, only exhaustion." He poured wine, his family's label, the last vintage before the banks called in loans. We drank without toasting. "I never stopped loving you," he said, "but I was drowning in them. My mother, Lorenzo, the weight of centuries on those hills. Julia was air, temporary. When you ended it, I thought you were freeing me to go back. Instead, you burned the bridge so thoroughly I couldn't." The climax came not in shouting but in confession. He revealed Donatella's decades-long affair with a married notary, the reason for her husband's crash, Lorenzo's gambling debts hidden in the estate books, his own cowardice in choosing silence over fight. Outside, the rain softened to mist. Dawn crept pale over the river. "I can't undo what I've done," I said. My voice cracked for the first time in months. "Nor I," he replied. "We didn't reconcile. There was no dramatic forgiveness." I left as the church bells of Cividale rang for morning mass, driving back to Trieste through vineyards stripped bare for winter. Months later, I heard the estate was sold to a cooperative. Matteo moved to Ljubljana, designing low-income housing, work that mattered. Donatella entered a convent in Umbria. Lorenzo disappeared to South America. I stayed in Trieste, restoring frescoes in the dim light of ancient palazzi, uncovering saints and sinners beneath centuries of grime. Some nights, walking the pier as gulls wheeled over gray water, I feel the wind carry both regret and release. Revenge had been precise, surgical. It severed the chains binding him to a toxic legacy and me to the fear of being left behind. But freedom, I learned, is a cold companion. The city keeps its secrets in stone and sea, and I walk its streets carrying mine, forever changed by the man who accepted my ending as final, and the woman who made sure he felt its weight forever.